how many of you all have heard about calming signals? So they are the very minute, small, absolute first level of body language that a dog will exhibit, and they're born with this knowledge. That's how they communicate with other dogs, and that's how they communicate with us too. And as you can see, the definition, the social skills or body language used to avoid conflict, invite play, communicate a wide range of information. So some things you would already know, like a tail tucked in, for instance, clear sign of fear. That's like the very low level of a body language cue that tells you, okay, my tail is tucked in. Sometimes you'll have ears back, forward, and there's a range of them. And it doesn't always need to mean I'm stressed out, I'm scared. Like it says, even a play bow is a calming signal. But what it is, you have to remember, is a very polite way of communicating. Okay, I'm scared, give me space. So one of the most common calming signals is just looking away. So if you can actually try it with your dog, you go straight at them and look in the eyes, they'll look away. One, because eye to eye contact is not very friendly in dog world, and the polite thing to do is look away, being like, okay, I'm just telling you that I mean no harm. This is clear, a bird crouching. You can even see the ears back, kind of to indicate that I'm a little scared. Licking of lips. When you go to the vet, if you just observe the dogs, you'll see a lot of lip licking. Yawning. That's another very common calming signal. When dogs are slightly stressed out or they need space or they're indicating that I'm uncomfortable, you see that. You'll even see a play bow. So like I said, all these body language, it's not just to tell you I'm scared. It's all kinds of communication. A play bow is a very polite way of saying I'm ready to play. I'm ready to play. This is when dogs are sniffing the ground. It's a very kind of, there's nothing really to sniff, but they are just sniffing. The weight is going back on the bigger dog. Do you see? That's another very polite way to tell the other dog that I need some space, or I'm not sure, or give me a few seconds. And the reason I'm talking about this is because if you ignore these calming signals, doesn't matter if you have one dog, two dogs, if you're a feeder, you work at the shelter, whatever, if you're around dogs, you must know how to read dogs, right? It's only fair. So all these are like the absolute first level of communication. And it's when we don't or are unable to read it is when we get things little more exaggerated, like a freeze or a growl or a lunge and a jump or a snap in the air. Like bear in mind, if the dog wanted to bite, they would bite. But it's just, all this is still communication. And in a dog's world, it's very normal. We still ignore. This is often when we shout at the dog, no, you cannot growl, you cannot lunge, you cannot snap at me. Or when they're freezing, like, no, come on, I'm going to pull you, like make a friend or walk past this thing that is stressful. They will snap and bite, right? And again, they are just telling you, look, I kept telling you, you didn't listen to me. Now I have to be louder and I will snap and I will bite. And then that's when you realize, okay, there is a problem. And it's really unfortunate when you get to that stage, because the next time something is stressful, the dog will bite, right? Why would they go back and say, lick the lips or yawn or try to walk away? Because they're like, well, they didn't hear me then, so now I have to bite. Which is why it's really important to watch your dog and pick up on those cues. So the whole, the idea of alpha in dogs or in canids came about in 1947. There's this paper by Dr. Schenkel. And this man studied wolves in captivity in the Swiss zoo. And basically what he found was, in captivity, there were 20 wolves in like cages, basically. Like, okay, the wolves who fight, and they're the ones who get access to the food, and they are alpha male, and there'll be an alpha female. So like they are alpha basically. And unfortunately, what that happened was they took this study of studying wolves in captivity, fighting to be top wolf, and translated it to dogs, being like, okay, now you have to be alpha with your dogs, because in a dog structure, there is, the dog who fights and is on the top is the alpha, and that is the leader. So you have to be that leader. And it's incorrect on many levels. First, most obvious level is that dogs are not wolves, right? Two absolutely different species. On another level is they observed wolves in a zoo, right? But when they observed wolves in wild, there were no fights. They were very peaceful family groups of wolves. And there was no alpha. It was the breeding male and the breeding female who would have cubs. Those cubs would then go away once they reached maturity to form their own little family unit. So wolves operated in family units in the wild. And the reason they had to fight in captivity because there was not enough food. There was not enough ways to be a wolf. There was no, physical exercise, mental, there's nothing. So they had nothing to do except fight for each other to get what they wanted. And finally, aggression is not the way you become top dog or alpha, if you want to think that way, because one, what we have learned so far is dogs are flight animals. They would have all these peaceable forms of communication. They would choose to run away rather than fight. And second is, if you fight, you are likely to get hurt. And in the wild, it makes no sense. It has no ecological contribution to your survival to fight for anything, right? And finally, we know aggression is a response to stress. And the most important reason to debunk the whole alpha thing is because the researcher themselves has said this is outdated and absolutely wrong. But here's the slight catch is dominance will exist. Because dominance, again, it's again a very misunderstood and misused term. The scientific definition to this date, there are about 15 to 20 definitions of dominance in the animal world. But what we know for sure, it's a status between two dogs. And it can change when you have, your dog with another dog. It will change when you have your dog and 20 other dogs. And dominance or alpha is wrongly equated with aggression. There is no fighting needed to establish dominance. There is no alpha. It is just someone who is a leader maybe, or who is higher up, or who gets first access to food. Alpha, not really a thing. Dominance hierarchy is a thing, but only within dogs. It's a relative status between dogs, nothing to do with us. We are not dogs. They don't expect us to be part of their hierarchy. Dogs will never share a toy. There will always be a hierarchy, but that hierarchy is never maintained through aggression. It is maintained very peacefully through calming signals. So they communicate wonderfully and very peacefully to maintain the hierarchy. And that's what, once you open your eyes and observe your dog, or even walking on the street or playing with the your dog's friends, they'll be communicating with each other. You may notice when you have like 3-4 dogs and they're all chasing a tennis ball, there will always be that dog who gets it. And that's not because he's the fastest. It's probably because the other dogs are like, okay, yeah, it's important to you, go for it. So there's ways you can control the resources to avoid any tension, because of course there will be that few seconds of, okay, where do I stand on this toy or for this human's attention. Right. So like I said, these are very good terms to know. And you will just be more empowered about dog communication, animal world. But how does it truly affect your day-to-day life? Some of the reasons we have dog fights is there's limited resources, like not enough food, or giving food in the same space, or giving food out of one bowl. And similarly, it's unclear structure now. So first of all, you need to go back and establish that, help the dogs understand that there is a hierarchy and you support the hierarchy. Tell them that I support the hierarchy. We had to figure out which dog was kind of higher and promote that dog, and ignore the one that was lower, because human attention is also a resource. You cannot be the one to enforce it. That is when this hierarchy is like broken down, and that's when you see a lot of fights. And there are other reasons for dogs to fight, not at all related to alpha and dominance and all that. It is, if they have had dog fights in the past, they may likely fight with another dog who's entered. If they don't like other dogs and like, no, you have to play, or you take them to a dog park to make friends with other dogs, they're going to fight because they're like, not because they are dominant to that, or they are uncomfortable. A fight is just a lunge and a sharper mouthing, right? Every day they are jumping and nibbling. So it just takes a few days or a few weeks of practice to jump and really chomp, and then it'll hurt. And then that dog will react, and then it's a bad experience. What matters? So regardless of how many dogs you have, food, of course, freedom from pain, injury, everyday mental, physical exercise, and ability to be a dog, sniff, run, bark, dig, all those are very dog things. But now when you have multiple dogs, 5, 6, and 7, that's what's really important. So quality one-on-one time with you is, you cannot expect the other dog to, you should not allow your dogs to play with each other 24/7, because like I said, that will directly reduce the quality of relationship you have with each dog, because they will not just be over bonded, but there's a risk of just unhealthy behavior. That's it. And what I had been talking about, broad body language, understand, that there is a hierarchy, nothing that you need to intervene with. But if things push comes to shove, how and when to intervene. Like when the play gets rough on the bed and you think it's enough, just stop. And they have to listen to you. Things like that. There are some things that will help for sure. Get a male. If you have a female, get a male. Just because remember that hierarchy is just they are different from each other.
Yeah.
But that age gap also helps kind of maintain that hierarchy easily. You have a little more experienced dog and a little less experienced dog. And like I said, double check if the puppy is okay. Because if you bring a puppy who has been abused by other dogs on the road, maybe they won't like it. And certainly breed plays a role. There are like a pit bull type dog. In India, I am guaranteeing you they are not coming from a sweet farm in Karnataka or something. They are coming from Punjab, and they are coming from any rescued pit bull is coming from abused backgrounds and likely dog fighting rings.